Hello and welcome to everyone. I am so happy to see you here. Happy Canada Day to those who are Canadians, and just happy Monday to everybody who is joining us today. It is Jen from Sundae Baubles, and this is the rescheduled Sundae brunch for this week on Monday. Thank you so much for being understanding. We have a very exciting show today, but work commitments have kept me on my screen on my computers for like 16 hours a day for the last few weeks, and that meant a few schedule changes. Thanks for bearing with. It is great to see you all. Welcome Sue, Catherine, Maria, Elizabeth, Deborah, Virginia, Savvy, Mishka. Thank you all very, very much for being here. What we do on this channel is really focus on research and identification for jewelry. And one topic that comes up now and again that can be very confusing is what is the difference between wear, damage, how does repair impact value? And that is what we're going to cover today. So it's going to be a very exciting show. And I do have a little bit of housekeeping to touch on first. First off, a big thank you to Mishka and Carla, our newest Extra Scoop Club members. If you're interested in joining, there is a join button on YouTube. There's also a Patreon option if you prefer to join that way. And this gets you access to some extra behind the scenes content like our Zoom meetup. And we will be doing a jewelry roadshow this month as well. And please make sure that you enter the Holy Grail giveaway. You can win $250 USD towards a jewelry item of your dreams, and I will also support you in shopping for this item and spend up to 10 hours finding examples at a good value that could be interesting to you. So, if this is something you might like, there are links in the community tab, and there are links, so make sure that you enter. Without further ado, I am going to jump right in. Yes, Mishka, you sure were. It's lovely to see you all. We are going to begin on a similar vein to the last live that we did, where we played a little bit of a game called What Do You See? And when you look at this brooch, the question is, what do you see? Now, this is an antique brooch, but maybe not all seems right with it. So let's kind of think about, what are we observing? Maybe you notice the clasp. Maybe you notice that there's a wee bend in the pin, some discoloration, an extra hoop that doesn't look like it was original. Perhaps you're saying, I think I see some wear, maybe some damage, maybe some repairs. We've got frayed hair in there as well. And you would be right that you do observe some of these things. Now, what is the difference between wear, damage, and repairs? Well, we're going to cover wear first and really put a definition to these things. Wear and tear is gradual damage that inevitably occurs over time as a result of normal wear and aging. So, we'll go through a few examples, but wearing something day to day, if you think about it, it may incur some scratches. You may bang it around a little bit and perhaps a prong becomes bent. If you have an enamel piece and you touch it over and over and over, it may begin to wear just a little bit. Wear can build up over time and ultimately become damaged. That is one important thing to note. Now, not all wear is bad in the jewelry collecting world. I personally like it when some of my antiques have just a little bit of wear because it allows me to know that they are indeed antique and not a modern reproduction. In terms of common examples of jewelry wear, we've got scratches, dings, bent prongs, rubbing, pearl nacre loss, and bent findings. And I'm going to show you some examples of these things so that you can really get a good feel for what it looks like. Dings and dents are in different categories. To me, a dent is damage and it is significantly more severe. So we will talk about that. Now, in order to guide us in this conversation, I thought it would be helpful to put together a handy-dandy tool to help us visualize a scale of the least severe wear all the way through damage. And we are going to use this to help us understand how wear, damage, and repairs can impact values. So here it is on screen. It is just a colored scale that takes us from green to yellow, orange, and red. Now, these concepts can be subjective, so I'm going to explain to you my reasoning. And if you have a difference of opinion, I absolutely welcome discussion and debate. But I'm going to share my opinions here today, and I'm putting them on stage for discussion, so feel free to let me know what you think. Now, next up, we need to talk about damage. Damage is the physical injury or harm that reduces value or usefulness. And some common examples of jewelry damage include chips, breaks, cracks, missing components, dents, verdigris, and broken findings. Repairs, on the other hand, can actually add some more value back to an item that has been damaged. And repairs to worn and damaged objects can also prevent further deterioration. So, repairs are actually a positive thing. Now, sometimes you will see that a repaired piece is still of less value than one that was pristine, and that is because it has undergone some sort of alteration. But it means that it is still useful and usable, and this is all very, very important. Some common examples of jewelry repairs and alterations include pin and clasp replacement, stone replacement, polishing, and restringing. I would say polishing, restringing are very minor. Stone replacement, when well matched, can be very minor as well. And pin and clasp replacement can return use to an object, so it is an important and relatively minor change, but it is a change nonetheless. And the last thing we're going to make sure that we cover today is alterations and modifications. Alterations are minor changes in appearance, character, and/or structure, and a modification is a major change in the appearance, character, or structure. And so I'm going to talk you through each of these as we look at examples. But first, let's compare some examples of modifications and alterations. An alteration could be simple as a resizing or a small repair, like that pin clasp or finding change. Modifications, on the other hand, include things like conversion. So think about taking a stick pin and converting it into a ring, or a brooch into a bracelet, or taking a bracelet and turning it into a necklace and really attaching permanent pieces to it that ultimately alter the original design. So that's really the difference between an alteration and a modification in a nutshell. Yes, Deborah M. A marriage is a very good example of something that would be considered an alteration if it was just adding an extra hook or a clasp, but if it is including solder and dramatic change, that is going to be a conversion. So why does it matter? Well, it matters because each impacts value. And whether you are a buyer or a seller, you want to know that you are getting the best bang for your buck, that you're not overpaying, and that you're selling at the right price as well. So, when we look at the wear and damage scale, I typically would place repairs, alterations, and modifications in the yellow, orange, and red categories. And so these are going to mean that you're not going to potentially want to or expect to pay or want to charge the same amount as something that is pristine. And Mishka, I love what you're saying. You try your best to include this information in your listings and in your terminology, and that is excellent. That is something that we should all aspire to do if we're selling pieces, because disclosure is key, and it ensures that buyers come away happy. Sellers are also happy too. Nobody wants returns. I am going to show you some pieces in my collection today that were not disclosed to me. And I'm going to try to also teach you, if you're a collector, how to look for these things online in listings and in videos. So hopefully together we're going to be able to learn to spot the details and also train our eyes. And that's exactly what the next session is all about. We're going to start by talking about findings. So I'm going to share with you some images, and we will take a look together at the findings on this Victorian onyx and seed pearl brooch. Absolutely beautiful from the front, no cracks or chips to the onyx, the pearls are all intact. But when we look at the back, we do see a clasp replacement. Now, we know it's a replacement in part because of that ugly solder that's there, and we also know that it's a replacement because that kind of a manufactured safety catch would not be expected on a brooch from the 1880s. We can see it here from another direction as well. And so here is where I put it on the scale of value. I call this usability restored. You would not expect to pay the same amount for this brooch as you would for one that was never touched, that was in perfect intact condition, but the repair was very meaningful and important because it means that it can continue to be worn as a brooch. So it was a good move on the part of the owner. And keep in mind that often antique jewelry passed from hands to hands, down within families, or were gifted or left to people. And once upon a time, jewelry was very scarce. There was no such thing as mass-produced jewelry. So if you had a piece, you were going to repair it and you were going to make sure that it was loved and weared. So that helps us understand and perhaps even accept as collectors that it's okay to have a repair in your collection. I personally love finding pieces with repairs because ultimately it can save me money. If it's on the back and I'm never going to see it and it's a beautiful example in wonderful condition, I think it makes a lot of sense to do that. Now, our next example is a beauty, and this one I got for a steal because of the damage and repairs. It is an Edwardian topaz brooch, and it looks beautiful, but you may start to notice a little bit of discolorations. Let's begin by looking at a video of this brooch together. We're going to start by looking at the front, and I'd like to encourage you to look at 11 o'clock and keep an eye on that and take a look what's on the back when we get there. So here's the video. You'll see one pearl looks a little bit dark. It's very lacy and light. The stone glows beautifully, but there's a little bit of discoloration to those pearls. And now we'll take a look at the back. And here we have it. If you zoom in, what do you see? You see some solder. So there's definitely been some repairs and some somewhat sloppy repairs as well. And I don't know if you caught that, but the catch is also a more modern catch, and it is very, very high up and raised. Now, the way that that repair was done on the catch, where it's high up and raised, actually helped preserve some of the pearls on that side. But the solder and the heat that was introduced ended up impacting this. So let's take a look. We have a couple of changes here. We have a clasp replacement sitting sky high, and we also can see it from this view as well. And this is going to be a safety catch. This one is still handmade and a little bit later than when this brooch was actually made. And then, of course, we have the evidence of solder, which wraps all the way around to the front, and we can see on the pearls. So there's a little bit of heat damage on the front as well, which is a shame, but it is still nonetheless beautiful, and as I mentioned, makes it easier to add something like this into a collection. Now, in terms of value, while the usability is restored, solder, and especially lead solder, is not popular to have on jewelry, whether you are a collector or a reseller, because it is a very, very expensive material to remove from fine jewelry. The amount of effort and the tools required are exceptionally high, which is why, in a case like this, I was able to get it for a song. Next up, we are going to look at a Victorian garnet brooch, and this is a beauty in my collection. You may disagree with the score that I give it, but I'm going to give you a second secret as we continue to go through our presentation today. Here is the back. And again, this beauty has some repairs. It has its original hinge, but you may notice that there is a panel underneath the clasp. And this signifies that there was actually some reinforcement that was done and also a clasp replacement. And these are very, very common to see in terms of finding repairs on the back of antique brooches. Here's another view. The metalsmith did a beautiful job. So they attempted to cut out a piece that was going to match and reinforce the segment in the front so that it wouldn't overlap and look ugly. And they used the smallest piece possible, and there's not solder leaking out all over the place. So they did a really great job. In terms of value, I'm calling this usability restored. However, It is not fully centered in the yellow section because we're going to talk about one itty bitty missing stone, which could potentially be restored as well and pop it into the yellow zone. But for me, this is between yellow and orange. Now, seed pearls is going to be one of my next topics that we're going to cover right here today. Seed pearls are beautiful, they're tiny, and often were used in Victorian and in Art Nouveau jewelry to add all sorts of little accents and details. Now, seed pearls, when they're put into things like rings, get worn down pretty quickly if they're being touched. As they always say about pearls, they should be the last thing you put on and the first thing that you take off. You always want to give them a soft wipe with a cloth to get rid of any pollution of the day or any oils that may have come into contact with them. And so this is part of why they say that pearls and rings are not always such a good idea, because centuries of usage and wear is going to get to them a little bit. So let's begin. We're going to look at a ring to start, and this is a beauty. This one has a nice row of 5 seed pearls. However, they are quite worn, especially the one on the furthest left-hand side. Now, this is considered normal wear, and pearls can be replaced, so I've positioned it between yellow and orange in turn of value. These were commonly used as engagement rings in the early part of the 20th century. And this one is a family piece for me. And it came down from my mother's side of the family. And I don't want to touch it. I'm going to keep it exactly as is. It is just an important piece of jewelry family history, so I keep it in my collection. But the next example is one that I found at a pawn shop. And we're going to take a look at it together and also take a look at the video of it. So this is another Victorian seed pearl ring, and it is studded with sapphires as well, such a beautiful cornflower blue color. Here is a video. Now keep an eye on the pearl in the daisy that seems a little bit smaller, calling it a daisy. You could call it a forget-me-not, call it anything you like. And then also the pearls on the top shoulder. Let's zoom in a little and take a look at that center stone. It's a little bit smaller. And this is also kind of a gray color, and this discoloration is again from wear. So when we look at it, we see some wear to the nacre of the pearls. And I'm putting this into the normal wear. Pearls can also be replaced. Now, as we've talked about before, seed pearls can be a little bit tricky to find exactly the right one that you want to replace. And sometimes in a ring like that, it's best just to leave it alone. Considering that I paid melt value for it at a pawn shop and it's got 3 really lovely cornflower blue sapphires, I wanted to leave it exactly as is. But this is another ring that I may be more inclined to swap out a pearl on. This, again, is a Victorian seed pearl and garnet ring. And if we take a look at the pearl in the bottom right-hand corner, it looks significantly smaller than the others. This one would be a pretty good candidate for replacement because when it's on the finger, it actually looks just a little bit wonky. I'm still positioning it into that yellow section because it is considered normal wear and the pearls can be replaced. But this one bothers me a little bit more than the previous examples. And then finally, we have this example that we talked about very recently. It is a beauty and it is missing a number of seed pearls. Now, you may remember my UV light trick. It can highlight issues, things like glue, and also help us count seed pearls in items that have a lot of them, because they come up not as that sort of ultraviolet, bright, white, glowing color. So we can see here where there are a number of missing pearls. Now, these would be generally easy replacements. So again, I've positioned this in the normal wear as the pearls can be replaced. Now, next, we're going to jump into the category of stones. When we think about where stones are positioned on our jewelry, that's going to impact how much wear and ultimately how much damage they might run into. Think about what you do with your hands during the day. You're probably touching things, opening doors, carrying bags, or other things as well. You can be knocking around quite a few things. A necklace, on the other hand, stays relatively flat. Now, it may flap around. If you lean, you might knock something. If it's particularly long, it might get stuck on a door handle or two. I don't know if that's ever happened to any of you or it's just me. And then we have brooches and earrings. I like to pair those together because they're a little bit more static. They generally stay put if we put them on, and we're not touching them, and they're less inclined to be chipped. So some of the gemstone examples that we're going to take a look at right now are inside rings, and this is going to show you the most common types of wear that we see in rings. We'll start with this beauty. It is a Victorian rose-cut diamond ring, still has a pearl, and the pearl has remained in remarkable condition, and this is likely because it is lower set than the rest of the ring. But what I want you to observe as we play the video is the difference in clarity of the two diamonds. Now, these diamonds are foil-backed, so take a look at the diamond on the right and notice that it's very clear. And the one that is on the left, which is now on the bottom, looks a little bit more hazy. These are backed and they're completely closed backed. And that is the reason for the haze that we're seeing. Foil becomes damaged over years, particularly if it becomes wet, and it can deteriorate underneath stones. This is something that can be swapped out, but it is a very labor-intensive process, and you would want to find a good jeweler that is familiar with antiques in order to address that. Now, this ring is another one that I just had to add to my collection, in part because it's got a wonderful oak leaf. We know it's antique and from the Netherlands, but there's definitely some damaged foil on this beauty, and that is going to impact the value. I'm calling it age-related wear. It is acceptable and it doesn't detract from the beauty of the ring. It still sparkles wonderfully. But if you have it under just the right light source, and that does include very bright sun, you are going to notice some of that damage to the foil. And so this is where you would expect to pay less for it than something that was in pristine condition. Next up, we have an Art Deco chrysoberyl ring. Now, from this view head on, it looks like maybe there's a little bit of abrasions to the stones, but it doesn't look too bad at all. However, I'm going to show you a video, and when this came to me, it was in pristine condition, and I wore it, and I chipped it, and I didn't even realize for quite some time, because the chatoyance in the chrysoberyl actually hid the fact from me. So here we go. The top stone is chipped on the underside, and we will zoom in to get a look, but that chatoyance and not having glasses until about a year ago didn't allow me to notice that there was even a chip, and I was shocked when I took a close look at it. Now, this is the kind of damage that can actually be quite costly to repair, because finding a good match when you've got a 3-stone ring is difficult. We'll take a look here. This is where the chip is. And in terms of the damage scale and value, I would not want to buy a ring for very much money if it already had a chip stone like this and needed to be replaced. Because the chances of finding a stone, well, it's probable over time, but you would need to find one and also find a good jeweler that can work with antiques. And it can be quite an expensive endeavor. So if you're thinking about, buying this to resell, it might be one to shy away from. Now here we have an Art Deco blue zircon ring. I absolutely adore blue zircons, but they are on the softer side of the Mohs hardness scale. And so it is very typical to see wear and abrasions on the facet junctions. And we're going to take a look at the video so that you can see exactly what I'm talking about. We're going to zoom in close, but notice how there's a little bit of haziness. Now, zircons have a doubling effect, which make it hard to focus in on them. But if you look at the halo, and if you look at just underneath where the facets are, it is a little bit dulled, and you can almost see like minute chips. This is very, very common with blue zircons, and zircons in general. So keep this in mind if you are in the market for a zircon. They can be repolished. When they are repolished, of course, they're going to become a little bit smaller, but the worn facet junctions will impact the value. However, in terms of generally accepted wear, this is between the yellow and the orange, because it is accepted that zircons will generally have some wear to them. It's just something that you really want to know about, because if you were to buy something like this and add it to your collection and have these details not be disclosed, you may be very disappointed. You want to be able to see that level of detail. You can always ask for videos before you make a purchase as well. Now, the next example in our stone category is an Art Nouveau diamond and opal pendant. And it is a beauty. And from this distance, we have no concerns. But when we get in closer, we're going to see that there is, in fact, a chip to it. So this chip will definitely impact the value. Could it be replaced? Absolutely it could, but it is a wonderful opal that has really good play of color. So it is likely not worth replacing. And so I've chosen not to, and just to keep it as is in my collection. If I was to resell it, I would definitely sell it very close to the value of the materials, even though it is a lovely, lovely antique. And that's because I would want to be fair. And this is another example of one that was not disclosed to me when I purchased it. Fortunately, I did get a good deal on it, so I wasn't crushed. But sometimes you can't see this level of detail in photos alone. So never feel shy about asking for videos when you're looking at something. And I know sometimes it can be hard to get a video for an eBay listing, but if you are in doubt, if there's not a good return policy, you may want to pass on it. Now, when we think about opals, there is something very, very important to know, and that is about crazing, because opals, as they lose their moisture, can become crazed, and this severely impacts damage. So I want to show you an example of what to look for. From this side, you can see some little lines, and it's not until we actually look at it straight on that we can see the effects of the crazing. And the crazing creates almost like a bit of a dead zone, as well as a sort of cracked sidewalk look to it. So this is definitely something that you want to look out for. Deborah, you're asking if you can fix a matte opal. You can absolutely repolish them. So a matte opal, that is less of a concern. But if there's crazing like this is actually considered damage. And I would personally avoid buying crazed opals because this damage is not reparable, which is very, very disappointing. We're going to jump into dents and dings next. I'm going to pause for a second, say hello, make sure that you all have a chance to type #win in all caps so that you have a chance to be entered in the draw for a Sundae Brunch mug. And it is lovely to see you all. Thank you for joining. I see lots and lots of people: Felicia, Deborah, Marlene, Carol, another Deborah, Judy, Stephanie. I hope I have not missed anyone. I'm sure I've missed many. Kathleen, I think I said that. Brenda, SMP Biker. It is great to see you all. Hello, Michelle. This topic and dents and dings is one that I think about a lot because I love lockets, as you all know. And lockets that are 100, 150-year-old often have a little bit of wear to them. And the question becomes, what is considered acceptable and what do you consider acceptable? We're going to start with one that was a surprise to me when I got it because I was not told that there was going to be any kind of dent and ding, and I double checked and asked. This is the locket in question, and it's very high polish, very flat surfaces, so it was important to me that it not have dents and dings. But on the back, there is something that can only be referred to as a little bit of a belly button. And I'm going to give you a quick video so that you can see. So the front is in fairly beautiful, flat condition, but take a look at that belly button dimple mark. Now, had it been disclosed, I'd be okay with it, absolutely. And I am still okay with it. And I love this locket, but I was disappointed to come across it when it arrived. And so it does belong in the yellow category because that is considered acceptable and normal, usage and wear. I just wished it had been disclosed. So good on all of you who do share details and share videos so that it is very easy for everyone to know exactly what is going on with pieces. Now, this example is in amazing condition from the front side, and you are probably going to be a little surprised at what the back looks like in video. So allow me to add this to the stage for us now. Here is the back. With light and reflection, we can see all of the multiple dings. With the quality of the front, I had decided that it was fine for me, that I was happy to take it. But this one, because it is more damaged, definitely is going to go on the slightly lower quality scale, and it will impact the value a little bit more. So here we have it. I've positioned it between yellow and orange. It is not seen at all when worn, and of course, sometimes, as mentioned, a little bit of wear that leans towards a little bit of damage like that can mean that you get a piece for good value in your collection. Now, this is a Victorian button hook, and this is going to be our example that has some dents to it. And there are quite a few dents on the back. Now, it is still usable, and I actually do use this to put on a couple of shirts that I have, but this age-related wear is leaning into that orange category. One side is, still looking pretty good, but the back side is definitely dented. And then finally, we have this gold Victorian brooch that I've shared with you before, and we will take a video. This one has only a minor ding to it, one that I would not call a dent. There's the back, there's the front, and I'm going to share the video now, but first I want to show you where that ding is. I'm fairly certain you're going to be able to spot it. What I loved that this seller did was actually put it on a revolving kind of turntable in their video, so it was very easy to see where it was going to be. Now, when this is being worn, it is not noticeable whatsoever, and I would say that this is a very, very minor ding. Would it be easy to take out that ding? Absolutely not, with the closed back sort of hair work that is tucked in behind it, but it is still absolutely beautiful to me. And I put this under normal age-related wear. Gold pieces, Victorian gold pieces like this, that are sort of that puffy, rounded bubble top, are usually hollow on the inside. So it is typical to find them with dings. And sometimes people have even re-engraved over them to try and hide some of those dings. All right. I'm going to now jump into cameos. Now, cameos, I have a very specific message that I want to talk about today, and that is all about the nose. Cameos are notorious, especially when they're set in rings, for becoming worn and for the nose to become chipped. So when you look at a cameo, that should almost always be the first place, if it is of a face, that you look to see, is the nose intact? Let's begin. Here is a Victorian hardstone cameo, and you can see that chipped nose. She can't breathe. This is definitely going to impact the value. And while there are some very skilled carvers that can recut cameos, it is not easy and is very, very specialized. So I place this firmly into the damaged sort of end of the scale. This Victorian coral cameo is very worn. Her nose is intact, as is her chin, but she's worn down. And this is also not considered as desirable as something that has sharp carvings to it. Because of the significant wear, it leans into the damaged category. So it's going from wear to damage, and that is also going to impact the value. We have another hardstone cameo here, and her nose and mouth have sort of been chipped to the point where it's hard to see where one ends and the other begins. And again, this is going to give us another damage result for the cameo. And finally, we have this beautiful Victorian hardstone cameo, or she once was, that is very worn and has multiple chips, including to the nose and to the surround. So based on this, I would place this ring as significantly damaged. There is significant wear and quite a few chips to it as well. So if you are in the market for a cameo, do keep in mind, is the nose there? And check to see what is going on. Another tip for shell cameos is always to hold them up to the light, or to have a little flashlight or the light on your phone and place it behind, because that's going to allow you to notice any sort of stress fractures or cracks that are within it. It doesn't work as well with a stone cameo that is dark, but carnelian, it can definitely give you a peek at it. Savvy, I see your comment. Absolutely. Thank you for letting us know that if you do win, you would like to make sure that we give away the mug to someone else. Can do. All right. Now, in terms of chips and cracks, there are some other things to look for. It isn't always easy to see if you're looking at a flat picture, so we're going to get some dimension into the next ones. This is a Victorian Pietradura bar brooch, and there is a chip to it, which may be sort of missed on first glance. I know when I first saw this, I was like, ooh, it looks like it's in fantastic condition. And here we have it. There is indeed a chipped background. I place this into the damaged but still wonderful category because it is a beautiful, beautiful example of Pietradura. The shading on the flower in the center, which I believe to be a rose, is absolutely wonderful with the different variations in the pink stone that were chosen. So we certainly wouldn't write this off, but it does have to fit into that damage category. Now, here we have another example of a Victorian inlaid stone Scottish brooch, and I am going to play you a video on this one because it is not immediately evident that there is damage to it. And this is another example of one that was not disclosed, and I truly believe that the seller didn't relieve that it was there. And if we take a look, we can see the back is beautiful, the front is beautiful, but this is where there is a crack. So allow me to play the video for you of this brooch. Oh, that is not it. Give me one moment. I'm going to have to queue up a video of this brooch. And it's worth sharing. I know some of you are looking for loops. You can get them on Amazon as well, both Amazon Canada and Amazon US. Dawn does have some. Shop around. You want a triplet. You want to make sure that it is going to sort of correct for the light and for color and make sure that there's not too much distortion. And I personally prefer a 10x jeweler's loop over a 30x. A 30x you need to hold very, very closely. It allows you to get in and super zoom in, but a 10x is what is normally used for diamond grading and will allow you to see all of the details that you are probably looking for. So hope that helps. All right, let me see if I can queue up the video. I'm only able to add 10 video files to share at a time, so this is going to give us a little bit of a pause. And here we have it. Oh no, I did not queue it up. Oh, my bad. Oh, here it is. There we go. Let's try to open this file. So we're going to take a look and zoom in to where the crack is. And only with sort of a little bit of light play and then running my fingernail over it was I able to observe that crack. It was a bit disappointing, and it does impact the value a little bit, but it is still in really, really beautiful condition. So in terms of how much this little crack is going to impact the damage, I've put it in the orange to red scale. It is very stable, but there's damage, and one should not turn a blind eye to damage. It is antique. It is still in very good condition, but there is indeed a crack that should be disclosed on that. And next up, we are going to take a look at a few examples of wear to metal. Oh, the reason for the extra pin. So that is a safety chain, yes. And it is because it's a very, very heavy brooch. And so if it was to fall off, it would be inclined to potentially chip one of the stones. So that's where I do love having that little safety chain on there. Now, here is a really beautiful gold-filled and paste pendant. And from the front, it is in utterly beautiful condition. On the back, it's in quite good condition, but if you look closely, you're going to notice that there is some worn gold plating, which needs to be acknowledged. So please note that as you take a look at your pieces. You want to understand where the wear is. And this was beautifully presented, and I knew exactly what I was getting when I bought it. It falls in the yellow to orange category in terms of wear, so there will be a little bit of an impact on value. You wouldn't expect to pay as much for it, but it is extremely wearable and absolutely beautiful. And yes, Judy, I see your note. I will absolutely do that as well. And now in terms of metalware, here's one that kind of really bothers me. It's wear to things like hallmarks or kite marks or maker marks. They're a disappointment. Do they actually impact the value of an item? This is very, very subjective. Now, here we have a Victorian inlaid stone Scottish brooch. Again, absolutely beautiful with bloodstone, jasper, and citrine. And when we flip it over and take a look at the back, there are two things going on. We have a bent pin and we have a rubbed kite mark. Now, kite marks were used essentially as early registration numbers, and I've got a video on that on this channel. And they're fantastic because they include all of the information around the date of the registration so that you can go and try to find out who registered it, and you may be able to find out who the maker is. And so it is particularly disappointing when something like this is missing from a piece. It impacts the value a little bit because the more you know about the history of a piece and who the maker is, sometimes that can yield more value. If a maker was working under a royal warrant or has well-known examples or was in famous shows, their work can be worth more money. But we will never know for this example. And so we're placing it into the yellow category. Overall, it is still in pretty good condition, but the loss of mark and the bend in the pin are going to impact it. And then finally, we need to talk about missing elements. Let's take a look. This is an example of a Victorian spun silver brooch. You may notice right away what is missing on it. We'll flip it over, take a look at the back. You've got all of the classic findings that you would expect to see, the hinge and the clasp, beautiful C-clasp, and it is missing one dangle. Yep, one little dangle, one little coil. Now, this could be recreated. It would be tricky to do a perfect match to make sure that you've got exactly the same silver color. So it's going to have a minor impact, and it sits between yellow and orange because it's missing a component. But it is still quite a sassy little piece, and I love the movement of it, and it was fully disclosed, and I could not be happier with it, to be honest. I really, really do love this brooch. Here's an example of a 20th century mosaic brooch, and take a good look and see if you notice anything that might be missing. And I'll give you a little hint. He loves me not, he loves me. He loves me not, he loves me. It's the daisy. It is missing some tesserets. There are tiles that are missing, and it's not necessarily the easiest thing to spot on a head-on photo. So always make sure that you flip things around and you take a look at all of the photos very clearly so that you can see, and go back and do some comparisons to see what might be missing. In this one, I'm placing it into orange. It is missing a component, but boy, it really still is absolutely beautiful and still wearable and relatively stable. But we do have to acknowledge the missing component, which is going to impact the value. And here we have another Victorian inlaid stone Scottish brooch example. Now, if you look at it on face value, you think perhaps it is complete. We see 4 funny looking little rings, but aside from that, the stones are all there and it looks like it's in good condition. Here's a view from the side and the back. Well, the truth is, it is missing a focal element, and this is actually going to have quite a significant impact to its value. We don't even know what that component could be. In terms of construction, often these types of little loops were created, and they would suspend either a citrine or another piece of stone, bloodstone, jasper, or even another piece of metal like a shield. We'll never know what was missing. So this one is going to have a significant impact on damage. And so, just like you're all doing in the chat and asking, why does it have an extra safety catch? Why does it have a loop for? These are questions we should be asking ourselves as well when we're looking at pieces and we're handling them or we're looking at them online. Now, our next one is the garnet brooch that we previously looked at. And I'm going to share a video so that you can see exactly what stands out on this one. We'll zoom in just a moment. I call this my cherry pie brooch because that's exactly what it looks like to me. looks like a pie studded with cherries of all sizes, and there is one tiny garnet missing. So you may remember from before, the back has the reinforcement that has been added under the catch, and then it is also missing one stone. So when we think about the impact overall of value to this one, this is why I have placed it in the yellow to orange category. I think that that is a fair place for it to be. It is still very wearable and stable, but it is absolutely not pristine and therefore would not command the same dollar value. Another example of a missing stone is this inlaid stone Scottish brooch. Again, I love this one. It has so many dimensions to it, and I love the faceting of the center stones. But there is a red jasper piece that is missing. And so, based on this, we have no choice, despite its beautiful kite mark. And there we can also see the loops that are actually holding that centerpiece and suspending it, similar to the one that was missing. So it's an idea of what could have been in the other brooch. This missing stone and the secondary missing stone in the top is going to place it into the damaged section. Now, to me, because this is made by an important maker and it is marked, I put it not fully in the red damage selection. I'm a little bit biased, and I will fully admit that, and I consider it part of my little Scottish jewelry museum selection. If you were to buy it, you would definitely expect to not pay nearly as much as one that was in pristine condition, probably less than half price. So something to keep in mind. And we are now going to take a look at one of the rings that has been in my collection the longest. This is an antique sterling ring, or almost antique. It is Art Deco, and it's got a moonstone, and it has one missing garnet. You probably see it. It's pretty obvious. And there we have it. Again, that missing garnet. It was fully intact when I purchased it, and I looked down at my hand one day while I was sitting at my desk in the office, of course not at home, this was pre-COVID, and saw that it was missing a garnet. Well, because of that missing stone or missing component, I've placed it into the yellow category. And the reason is this can actually be easily replaced. When you think about stone replacements, the chrysoberyl is a big deal because it's hard to find one that is just that same hue. Chrysoberyl comes in many, many different hues. Garnet does as well. However, it is easier to do a color match. So in consulting with jewelers near me, they're able to do a replacement of the stone on the spring for $30, which is extremely reasonable. So to me, this is a minor condition issue, but it is one nonetheless. Next up, we have this Victorian Etruscan revival brooch. And one of the telltale signs of this sort of Etruscan revival style is going to be the rope and canotile detailed work. But we have a fairly glaring bit that is missed. This could be reproduced by a good jeweler if you wanted to add it back. Mind you, it also is kind of telling that it's been worn. It is beautiful. I've placed it in the yellow to orange. It is still wearable, it is still usable. There is a piece that's missing, and it will impact the cost of it if you were to try to buy it, but this is where it would sit, in my opinion. And then finally, we're going to go into the category of damages. And to start, we're going to begin with this Victorian sentimental brooch. Now, take a look at it and do tell me what you see. When I look at this, I definitely see the wonderful frame, but you're also going to see that it seems very haphazard. What is in the center doesn't appear to be any particular design. Now, normally, these sentimental hairpieces would be like the Prince of Wales, sort of beautiful feather kind of motif, or a lover's knot, or some other depiction. And there's definitely all of the components and makings for that. But the elements are all detached. This is what I would consider significant damage. If you wanted to repair something like this, you would likely have to consult with someone who's very experienced with these types of pieces. They would need to open it up, reposition the pieces, drawing on their knowledge of what was likely to have been designed based on the components that are left in the condition that they're in, and it would be quite invasive to do and potentially risk damaging the piece as well. So unfortunately, that beauty is a nod to the past, and it is a wonderful piece of history, but the value of it is severely diminished and impacted by the damage. Next up, we have an Art Deco butterfly wing brooch. Now, I love butterfly wing jewelry, but sometimes it's very damaged and the piece becomes really only worth the value of the materials. In this case, it is very cloudy and this is likely moisture damage. So once upon a time, this entire brooch would have been a vibrant blue, possibly even shifting a little bit into the brown purple, but it shouldn't be sort of this moist looking interior. This one I would also chalk in the significant damage category, and for me personally, it would be a pass. And finally, we're going to talk about some conversions. Now, conversions can impact value for the better or for the worse. And we're going to focus on just a few conversions today, but then we'll have a conversation too. This Victorian garnet stick pin conversion was done pretty well, but we do see the evidence of solder on the back. Now, in terms of is the value gone up or down, the modification increased usability and added additional gold in the form of the shank to the ring. So this ring is actually going to cost more money if you were to buy it, or I would value it higher than just the stick pin alone if I had an identical one. This is very subjective. There are purists. I myself am one. I don't like to modify stick pins, but if I find one that has been modified, I want to save it. So this is where the modification actually increased in value, mostly because of the additional gold. These retro earrings, on the other hand, they are absolutely beautiful and converted from screwback, but the modification reduced the gold weight. As a purist, these are part of my collection, but it bothers me a little bit that they were modified and the gold weight was reduced. So they're a little bit less expensive than what one might expect to pay if there was an identical pair in pristine condition. And then we have this cameo ring in my collection. It is a beautifully carved stone that is set within a frame that is on top of another black stone set very high, and it may have even been a pendant initially. And there is a giant lump of solder on the back. Now, this one has been modified, and there's definitely the solder issue, which is a problem. I don't know that many people would be interested in buying this for the value of the gold because the solder is on it. So this is going to really impact the value of the piece. And then finally, we have this antique component pendant. And this one is one that drives me crazy. And I'm going to share with you why. When an item is converted, if it's being converted to make it more usable, that's great. It gives it more life. As a purist, I don't particularly love that. I prefer that things be worn the way they are and that they find homes with people who want to keep them pristine. But if you've inherited a piece and it has meaning to you and you want to convert it, or you really want something, of course you are free to do anything you want. If you're going to sell a piece like that, disclosure is always key. But this piece that we're looking at was listed for almost $3,000 and was not listed as a conversion. And we're going to talk about why that is not okay. So when we look at it, it has beautiful shape to it, and there are some lovely garnets to it. But the bail doesn't really fit. When we flip it around, we can see that the brooch hinge has been modified to make it suitable for a bail, and the clasp was removed. And this is where I feel that it is very poor form not to disclose that this is not all original. In fact, if we look very closely, we can see that the gold is not a match for the bail to the rest of the brooch. It was added and it was engraved to try and match the rest of the pieces. So in this case, someone is trying to pull a little bit of a fast one and sell something as an all original pendant that it was not, which is disappointing. And here's a close-up of the back as well. So it allows you to see what was done. Yeah, So sometimes these sorts of changes are known as Franken conversions. They're not ideal, and you definitely would not expect to pay full price for a pristine item. And it is easy to miss something like that. So it's always buyer beware. That's why we like to go with the trusted sellers that we know, and we must always use our eyes and ask for videos when in doubt so that we can see all aspects of a piece. And if ever you are in the market to buy an expensive piece of jewelry, do not hesitate to ask all the questions and for videos and ensure that there's a good return policy, because I suspect some buyer who one day will pay $3,000 for this will be disappointed if they were to learn that it is indeed a conversion. That is heartbreaking. Jamie, thank you so much. Appreciate your sticker. Now, we're going to put all of this together, and we're going to take a look at 3 pieces in my collection. And I would love for you all to tell me what you think about them in terms of wear or damage. And we'll go through 3 pieces together. Deborah, I see you have a question. Your silver enamel single cuff-like rings are conversions. Yes. So while they are conversions, Deborah, you are putting value back into them because they otherwise couldn't be worn if you only have a single cufflink. You are giving them new life. You are adding additional metal to it. And so really, to me, you're doing a service. I know some people do like to take apart cufflinks, turn them into earrings and other things. If you're going to get more wear, because really cufflinks aren't worn very popularly, then I can't fault you for that. And it's the same thing with stick pins. A lot of people really love to convert them and turn them into things like rings or pendants. Just make sure that you're doing it in the most sort of sympathetic way to the original piece as you possibly can. All right, are you ready to put your new knowledge to the test? We're going to do the antique coral roundup, and we're going to start with this Victorian coral pendant. And I'm really curious as to what you're all going to think. I will share a video with you, and that is coming up right now. Allow me to add it. Here it is. Lovely, vibrant Mediterranean coral. Take a look at the back. We do see some pitting. It's marked for 14K. Otherwise, it's in pretty good condition. Let me know what you think in the comments. I'm going to remove this from the stage. There we go. I'm curious, from the green all the way to the red scale, where would you position it? And then I'll show you 2 more that we'll talk about. And I'll give you some of my thoughts on this one. So because the front is in really good condition, that is why I bought it. I wasn't too concerned about the back. The piece as a whole is considered to be made of bloomed gold, and that is 14 karat gold that was actually plated with even a higher carat gold to give it a very, very yellow look. And that is a lot of what we can see on the back, where there's almost like some pitting and chipping to that second layer to it. Kathy says yellow. Nisha says, replace the coral dangle on the left side, yellow to red. Jane says yellow can be loved. So I personally put it into that sort of yellow section, kind of overlapping maybe a little with orange, but very pleased with it. And it is one that is a really good match for some earrings that I have, so I was not too disappointed overall. Now, the next example that we're going to look at, oh, and I should show you, this is the back, a still photo, to show you what I mean about the bloomed gold and a little bit of the pitting that you see on it. I'm glad that we are in agreement. Now, this is the second one, and this is another Victorian coral brooch this time. The first was a pendant, and you're going to see a few little bits of details on this where there's wear to the plating. This one is gold filled, and it is another beauty. I'm going to pull up the video file for you right now so that you can see what it looks like. And here it comes. Look at those dingle dangles. I love that en tremblant effect of dangles. So you can see, especially in the back, and this is what I wanted to focus on, where we have wear to the plating. And for this one, again, please choose how would you rate it? And I will put a photo back up so you can take a look at it. And I'm seeing reds and yellows to orange. And I will tell you where I see it fitting as well. Now, the dangles are all intact. It's in good condition from the front, just a little bit of loss to the gold fill to the very top, which we'll look at here, just in that tiny little flower, but overall still shiny and looking good. But I, like many of you, have put it into that sort of orange section. You could maybe get away with a yellow if you wanted to, but as long as you disclose it. So this is the thing. Everyone has their own eyes, and this is why I consider this to be such a subjective topic and one that we need to talk about, because what you see and what you want and what is acceptable to you should also be considered based on like the rarity of the piece. I mean, how many coral gold fill brooches do you come across, right? Even though I just showed two, not that many. Jane, thank you so much for the sticker. Really appreciate you. All right, our next coral piece, and this is our last coral piece before we do the draw for the mug, so please make sure you type #win in all caps, is a necklace. And this necklace is a coral necklace. The center has a bead. The clasp is gold fill. And I'm going to play a little video for you. And the video is going to tell you exactly what is going on with it. So I strongly suggest you hold off until you see the whole video before you decide what you think it should be scored as. I initially thought it was in excellent condition, and then I wore it for a day, and something happened, which I'm going to demonstrate for you all. Love a barrel closure, but you should never, and I'm going to play it one more time, be able to simply give it a little tug like that and have the clasp open. And so the clasp on this is indeed worn to the point of damage where it doesn't stay closed. Yeah, so I am going to have to remove that finding and have it restrung, which was very, very disappointing. So yes, I agree, Pix by Nisha. Red, sadly, all day. This one is absolutely worth saving, but it is going to take some work, much to my disappointment. And so here we have it. I wanted to show you what this looks like. You can actually see a little bit of a bend. This was a blind buy for me. I got very excited by it and probably should have asked a few more questions about how secure the clasp was. It is definitely repairable, and I will absolutely be repairing it. So you'll see it again on my neck soon, but it belongs in the red category for sure. So this is your reminder. Buy what you love, and always look closely at pieces and ask all the questions that you may have as well. Now, we are going to, yes, it could use a restring, Jane. I totally agree. I'm going to end up restringing the whole thing, and this is not happening until after my project is finished. Lisa, I have tried to open up the pin a little bit to see if I'm able to like expand it so that it sticks, but it's a very short necklace. It's only 13.5 inches. So unfortunately, because it sits so tight around the neck, any kind of movement like this forces it to pop open, and it just puts too much pressure. So I think I'm actually going to restring it and put a slightly like a slight extender of 2 links on each side to make sure that doesn't happen again. And you can be as forgiving as you want to be when you are looking at pieces and deciding what you think that they're worth to you. So this is why it is very, very subjective for everyone. All right, I am going to quickly throw up the banner so that you can see it to make sure that you enter for the giveaway. And we have 28 entries in about, we'll give it maybe 10 seconds or so. Actually, I'll talk about the other contest and then we'll do the draw. So the other contest is the Holy Grail contest. And earlier today, we had just under 40 entries. And this is your opportunity to win $250 and a curated jewelry shopping experience with me. And you can scan this QR code if you have your phone handy. I will put the link also into the description of this live. And there's also community posts that have the link, and the video reminder has the link as well. I do hope that you will enter, because this is your chance. And if you aren't sure what you want as your Holy Grail piece, then what will happen is I will send you that $250 and you can hold tight until you are ready for buying whichever piece you want. You can use it to buy the piece outright. You can use it as a contribution to a bigger piece that you have in mind, whatever you would like to do. And this is really my thank you to the community, because I really appreciate you all. And I appreciate the support that you've given me through my very, very busy project season that is weeks away from launching. We are so close now. All right. I am going to prepare to do the draw. I will take down the banner now. Now, if you want to enter that contest, you must enter. I said July 1st was the last day, but I'm going to be giving my eyes a break today. So you have until basically 6 a.m. PST tomorrow morning to enter that contest. So please do get those entries in. I am now going to share my screen so that we can do the giveaway. And here is the StreamYard tool. And we've got 28 entries, and I'll count down from 10, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Good luck, everybody. And we'll do the draw. And the winner is Mishka. Hooray. Congratulations, Mishka. I'm going to double check that I have your correct address. I'll send you an email, and we will make sure that you get your prize-winning mug. Thank you all so much for being here. We do have a scheduled Sunday brunch next Sunday, and what we're going to do during that brunch is review through the entries for the Holy Grail contest. I'm going to share some photos, and we're going to do the draw to see who the winner is going to be. All right. That is everything for me today. Thank you all again very much for being here. It is lovely to spend time with you as always. And if you do have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. I'm a little bit slow on my responses right now because of my project. Want to give you that heads up, but I will do my very best to get back to you as quickly as I can. Congrats, Michka. I hope everybody has a wonderful day. All my Canadian friends have an absolutely wonderful Canada Day, and we'll see each other again really soon. Take care, everybody. Yes, get your entries in. Have a wonderful day.